the food series, making vinegar. Well, my research is always curious how the ancients, Romans, Greeks, that made vinegar. So since I don't drink alcohol, I like my liver and kidneys, but it never occurred to me, so I went looking, and it turns out to be it was grapes. Okay, you mash up the grapes, you get your wine, and good wine or bad wine. One of the things about wine, it has acetic acid in it. One of the other things about it is it reacts with lead cups. And a lot of people had lead. Well, I won't say a lot of people had lead. A lot of people had, the very wealthy had lead cups, they had copper cups, they had silver cups, and they had gold cups. And the average person didn't have a cup. So they would sell in big vats, and that they would sell wine with straws, right? Great. Always nice sharing your germs with your next door neighbor. Well, of course, back then they really didn't know anything, and people didn't live a long time. So what do they do with wine that starts to turn? They let it turn. They take the big vat, they pull it out, they put it in another vat, and it turns out to be it turns into a mixture of vinegar, which they could use. Well, they use vinegar for meat. I guess the big thing is brine is meat. They salt for brine, and they soak meat in there to keep it from spoiling. But they found that it turned into a mixture of wine and vinegar, and that was also used to as a ration to the Roman army, and because they carried vats, clay vats of these things, and they didn't really care whether it goes bad, and they would find water. If they found water, they would mix the vinegar wine with the water. The acetic acid in the wine would kill the bacteria in the water system. They didn't know about bacteria in water system, but that was a ration to the troops. Okay, which was good. And for hundreds of years, that was carried in big vats for the troops to drink. It kept, basically, most of the water was polluted anyway. They drank out of streams, or as their horses would drink out of, and this kept them alive. Well, I guess it didn't kill them, and they didn't know why. Okay. And of course, anything you kill and you didn't eat, you happen to put it in a container of vinegar wine, and for storage for meat. Hey, what am I going to do? And for hundreds of years, that's the way they did for their army, which is pretty logical. Never throw anything out that you could use. Of course, when they soaked it in lead, give it to your enemy. Here, have a mug of this. Basically, only people that drank out of lead cups was the rich people, the emperors, the Senate, those who had money. All the other peasants drank out of not ceramic or clay cups. That was the thing, beer, when beer became popular, beer or ale was a daily thing. There was no preservatives. It was the monks who created herbs to preserve beer. At that time, everything went bad for fermentation. And how did you fermentate beer? Usually with bread, because your bread would rise, and they would bake it to a point, and then they would take the bread and throw it into wine vats. And since sugar was almost very hard, if they found anything with sugar, honey with that thing, honey wine, honey vinegar, natural process of things. But hey, what are you going to do? Would I make this stuff up? If I were to make this stuff up, I'd go get the cheapest 1 gallon jug of wine I could find. Yes. Throw some, what they professionally do is they actually buy a starter yeast for this stuff, and you put that in. To me, I'll just go get baker's yeast, drop it in there, take a couple spoonfuls, put sugar in there and let the thing bubble away for a couple months. But as I said, I don't drink alcohol, and I really wouldn't want to take this as, well, you can add it to your, as people say, you could create your own vinegar and you can add it to your salads. I think I'd rather have store-bought red vinegar wine or something like that. I don't want to trust my chemistry is shaky. I guess if it doesn't blow up in my face, it must be pretty good. My chemistry is not so good for this. And would I actually use this stuff for anything? If I want vinegar, I go get the white stuff. At least I know that stuff. I shouldn't say I know how it's made. I don't want to know how it's made. I don't use vinegar. But other people do. They have bottles. They make their own vinegar for their own salad dressing. And you look at the shelves. They got these little thing across. I guess it's a hobby of making your own vinegar. I guess like making wine or making beer. That's what Tom, my little old winemaker, would do. I always loved walking into his house because he would have bubbling here or something, or fermenting there or something. And then he would sell his brew to a couple bars. He would have in the basement things, a burner down there, or sometime, or he had out in the garage, and he would distill off his moonshine, or his brandy. He would get wine, cheap wine, and basically distill off the water and have brandy, which he sold for a good buck, As Tom was saying, that he back in the when he was in high school, his garage was a big moonshine operation. His father said, "Well, it's we have to store the car inside." "Okay, Dad, okay, I'll move this over here." I still was on wheels to move it out of the garage. And he went into his house in his basement, and it's bubbling here and bubbling there. He said, "Yeah, I'm making vodka this week." I was like, okay. Tom was an interesting chemist, and he actually, when he went to college or university, he went in there to be a chemistry teacher. And he said, "I make more in my basement than I make a year as a chemistry teacher." It's like, I agree with him. He said, knowing me, he said he was doing it. And he learned a skill from his father, who learned it from his grandfather, who used to have a booze operation during Prohibition, because he would sell to a local gang member. He knew in the mob, I might say Al Capone's mob, and he would brew up stuff for Al Capone, whiskey. And but yes, they said, yeah. During World War II, he used to make moonshine, and moonshine and what? Gasoline, mixture of gasoline and moonshine to drive a car around. It sold, and I guess his stuff was pretty heavy in alcohol, more alcohol than there was water. But Tom was an interesting character. He was a good friend. He did photography. On the side, he said, yeah, when I really want to make money, I just take a gallon of my moonshine down to the local pub and tavern, and I can turn it in for cash. When he was unemployed, he said he just kept at it, because during the winter time, it was warm. His basement was warm. In the summertime, his garage was warm. But back to the thing about Roman soldiers having a mixture of old wine and vinegar to drink. Guess so. They had rum in the Civil War and they had whiskey. I'm quite sure the Jack Daniels of the South have supplied the Confederate Army with its share of whiskey. I never got into it. I don't drink alcohol. And as I said, it would most likely blow up in my face. And of course, at one time, legally you could not make beer or wine. ATF did not have a license to do that. Now you can go out, buy the ingredients and everything you need at a little wine shop where they sell all the ingredients and the kettles and that. And right now you look at Chicago, has 100 small breweries in Chicago. Hey, and people drink beer, yeah. And I think even the big, I know Miller had Milwaukee beer company. There was a school. We were doing my research. There was a school in beer making in Chicago. It was over by Northeastern University in Chicago. And they had a nice library. They had a thing in there. You take the course, you get your certificate as a beer maker. And all these little craft places, that's where they went to learn to make beer. Hey, you pay your money, you become a beer master. Since Philip Morris owned Miller, all the people up there went to that school. It's like, oh, okay. Well, that's it. That gets pretty well that thing. I guess I did my little thing on how to make my, which I of course would not do, how to make vinegar at home using the cheapest white I could, and my bag of sugar, and the old saying, baker's stuff, yeast. Pour it all, get it, mix it up together, and let it sit for the next couple months, and I will have this brew. No. But it's very interesting to study how it was done. Let's see the other thing. Maybe I should study doing something on as a food series. How to make whiskey, how to make your moonshine properly. I got my organic kit at home. I had to buy that when I was in graduate school. My own organic kit, because why you bought stuff in graduate school, because they didn't have a budget for their own glassware, so they offered what was that glass company make scientific glass, slips, it's not there anymore. Yes, you had to buy your own organic kit. We came with a little black thing and that thing. And it, because when you did your experiments, the money in the school wasn't there to buy glassware, so you brought in your own stuff. Well, I'll tell you, it's a university. They did not have the money to buy glassware for themselves. When courseworks were there, you paid an extra fee for glassware. And if you already, since I had my own kit, yeah, that's it. My kit went into a locked storage area with my name on it, and other people had their name on it. And that's what we used on doing chemistry stuff. So, yes, I still got that at home. Mantle. I wonder if I can get a... Mantles are... They're little half-round things. They're insulated with like asbestos or something like that. And they're heating mantles. And you go to this thermostat here. You turn it on. I think they also make heating plates like that, where you regulate the thing and that thing, and you throw magnets in here. Kind of like my chemistry from 40 years ago. Trying to remember that. But it is interesting. I just might see if I can make properly beer. Of course, I don't know what it would taste like. No, I don't drink beer. I don't drink alcohol. My liver and my kidney is mine. I sure don't want to share it with a bottle of beer. And I know people do. Wait, my neighbors, do they drink? They're Mormons. No, they don't drink. Well, maybe they do. Oh, I can have them tested. I better call the fire department EMT people before I have them tested, just in case my alcohol goes too far. Oh, yes, that's a big one. Okay, I think I made enough about wine, vinegar, and all the little stuff like that. Fire water. Let's make fire water. I can put that in my car. I got an what's it, E something? E15? No, I don't want to ruin my car. I put it in somebody else's car. Maybe I'll put it in the lawnmower.